Welcome to the Global Community of Practice webinar. Trauma Healing Institute is so pleased to welcome you back to another webinar. We're so glad that you're here, part of the trauma healing family. Today, we're going to be talking about strength from weakness, which is part 2 to the first book, which you all know, Healing the Wounds of Trauma. We're going to learn what is strength from weakness, how we can use it. We're going to hear stories from facilitators around the world who are using it, and we're going to experience part of the material ourselves. We're so glad to see people joining from all over the world. And we are pleased to remind you that there is in the chat feature, there are several ways that you can communicate with each other. You can communicate directly to the panelists, but we would prefer that you share your questions with everyone. We'd like to encourage you to share with one another, connect with one another, but also to ask questions of us. Make sure you choose, click all panelists and attendees from the little blue box above your chat. Otherwise, it'll just show up for us panelists and no one else will be able to see it. If the chat, which is always very busy, is too distracting for you, just remember, you can close the chat. You don't need to have it open if it's distracting. Please put questions throughout the webinar for us, and we hope to be able to answer some of those. Also, at the end of our time together, we're going to do a closing activity from Strength from Weakness. We ask that you would get a pen and paper or pencil so that you can do the exercise at the end. Again, we're glad to see you. Today, we're talking about strength from weakness. And of course, Dr. Phil Monroe is joining us again. He's the director of the Trauma Healing Institute, and he is going to be sharing about what is strength from weakness.
Thank you, Rebekah. It's so good to be with you all today. There are so many of you coming in and chatting where you're coming from. And so we say a hello to you all. And we noticed on the registrations that a very large number of you are apprentice facilitators. That means you have gone through the initial training and you hopefully have been leading healing groups and practicing. And we hope to see you back for more community of practice events and advanced trainings so that you can experience this strength from weakness material and to be able to use it as you continue the healing. And it's not just a material that could be good for other people. It really is a material that has brought a lot of healing to facilitators themselves. And we'll be talking about that in a bit. So yes, Rebekah, we're here to talk about strength from weakness, growing through suffering. And it is a new material by Dr. Harriet Hill and a number of her colleagues who helped create these lessons, pilot these lessons, and a variety of places, get them translated into several languages, and then publish them. This new set of lessons, 9 in total, are designed to be used for adults who have already completed their Healing the Wounds of Trauma, How the Church Can Help healing group, and they want to continue. They want to go further. You know, healing is never an all at once, snap of the fingers, something that we can just do quickly. It takes time, and there are layers of healing, and these lessons can help bring those layers. So during this webinar, we'll be talking about what's in these lessons. We will talk about how we can experience them and where we can find them and who to use them with. So back to you, Rebekah, and introduce our first guest so that we can learn more about these lessons.
Many of you already know Dr. Harriet Hill, and if you don't, you are a frequent user of Healing the Wounds of Trauma, of which she is one of the authors. And of course, she is the architect of what we know and love about trauma healing. It is my great pleasure to welcome her. But in addition to her prolific work as a Bible translator and as an author, she is also a prolific artist. And this is one of her most recent paintings called Out to Pasture. Welcome, Harriet.
Hi, it's good to be with you.
It's so good to see you, Harriet, and to talk with you about these. These are lessons that you and I have talked a lot about actually over the years as they're in creation. But since we're introducing them to many people who might not know about them, tell us a little bit about the impetus, the history behind them, how they came to be.
I understand that the request, as I heard it, was primarily, first of all, I heard it from Catherine Barnhart, who had observed in different places in her many travels and maybe in Memphis itself, people who were meeting, doing healing the wounds of trauma, wanted to keep meeting, and they wanted to keep doing this kind of thing. And Catherine had looked around for other Bible studies and didn't find anything with what she referred to as this secret sauce of, I don't know, just sort of the combo of group participation, small group activities, Bible, mental health, and that sort of thing. So that's where it started, as far as I know.
Yes, and you're right. There's a lot of requests for these kinds of lessons, and we've built, and you especially have built supplemental lessons before that could be used in the healing group. But as you rightly pointed out, there's been a lot of requests for, we want to keep going, and we want something that is participatory, that engages with scripture, that gives us opportunities to discuss and experience healing, because there's more to be had. So as you and your team that you formed were creating these, talk to us a little bit about what were some of the ideas and things that you wanted to see in that next layer of healing.
Yeah, so there were a lot of people involved in this. Actually, probably a lot of you on this call, on this webinar, were probably involved in one way or another, just the energy that we share together and that we bring to this, this question about trauma and healing. So there were a lot of people involved. At one point, and I would like to acknowledge in the references section of the book, there are a lot of references listed, books, articles, stuff. We're really building on the shoulders of what has gone on by a lot of people in the larger church. And if ever you want to learn more, just read some of those if something catches your eye, because this in the book is really a boiled down version. We met in Kenya in 2018, I believe, in August, with a small team, Charles Suwami and Godfrey Loom, Baraka, Paulette, Eugenie, and my long-term partner in crime, dear sister Margaret Hill. Anyway, so we filtered through a list of topics. What should we do? And Catherine especially wanted topics that were core to healing of any variety of trauma. As Phil, you mentioned, we did these, on rape, on abortion, on aftercare, and on other topics, but some things that were core. So what we distilled out of all of the possibilities was looking at grief again, and especially the theological aspects of grief, focusing on Job. Theological is always the hardest part for me, the thing that lasts the longest. And so looking at that again, we looked at, hurt people is what we say, right? Like if you're hurt, you're likely to pass it on to others and react to others. So how do we really identify evil and good and desire good, and especially identify ways we are tempted to do evil, to do harm to others? Because if we've been traumatized, we might likely have a weakness in a certain area to pass it on to others. So that was another one. Another area we looked at is generational trauma. And in this book, it is not fused with justice. We have the last lesson on advocating for justice, but often some people are affected by generational trauma. That means you inherited patterns, or you were the victim of some trauma, maybe alcoholism, suicide, domestic abuse, any of these things. And that has gone into your very fiber. So that gives you sort of a longitudinal, a look back into your family and your grandfathers and all of that, to see maybe the problem of my trauma isn't just about me. Maybe I've inherited trauma, or also maybe blessings, because we get both, not just the one. So just understanding a little more, that sort of thing. Then we looked more at feelings. Shame is a big thing that that has come up over the years that needs to be addressed. And so there is a lesson on shame, distinguishing it from guilt. And it's not so much that we have a category, but that we become more aware what that feeling is when we have it, so that we can know how to react in a more healthy way. Because shame often is just this icky feeling of, ugh, So the shame and guilt, and then looking at other feelings and trying to understand what we're feeling, when we're feeling it, and then know how to react and use the energy of those feelings to actually do good. The last one is, oh no, there's two more, Phil. Can I give you two more?
Yes.
Okay, two more. The whole area of relationships, there were comments on healing the wounds of trauma that lesson 9 on forgiveness is good, but it doesn't go far enough, because it's primarily talking about forgiving someone in your heart. And so in this strength from weakness, we take it to the next level of actually having those difficult conversations, often about forgiveness or apologizing, or it could be another conflict of some variety, but how to have these difficult conversations and how to really offer that, meet the person, if it's safe to do so, of course. And so some more on relationships and bringing about a restored community. And then just finding your purpose in life is the last one that I'll mention, because I already said about advocating for justice. But finding your purpose in life, a lot of times, we need to have a vocation in life, whether it's our job that we're paid for or something we do on a volunteer basis or even as a hobby, but something that gives us energy. And sometimes that is our job, and that's a wonderful, wonderful moment. But often, if we've experienced severe trauma, sometimes we can find a vocation out of that to really give back to the community, to really help others. Or we can find a vocation completely other, but just how can I really be a helpful member of my community and fulfill my own desire for work? Because work is a good thing. Yeah. We need to work.
That's right. There's a lot in there, Harriet, that you've just shared with us. And, I was thinking about this as you were talking, that in healing the wounds of trauma, we are in essence giving people permission for the first time, maybe, to grieve and lament, to bring their pain to the cross, to begin to think about how to forgive. And certainly many people take those lessons and they apply them in their lives, and they continue to work out with those passages and their friends. But what you've just described is, how can we continue that conversation? Because permission is good, but there's a lot of questions behind that permission, right? Especially when you think about the shame and guilt. Like, okay, so I had some initial feeling better, but now what do I do with this ongoing shame where I still feel ruined? I still feel guilty for things. So it's just exciting to see that we don't have to stop at permission. We can dig in deeper.
We actually have a question from the community about shame. Christy Edge asks, do you delve into shame being an understanding of our position of separation from God? This is super important in an honor shame culture. It's the shame that is our separation and the restoration of honor through Jesus. Any comments about how shame is treated in the book, Harriet?
Oh, me. Okay, I thought Phil would answer that one. Yeah, shame, we use the story from Genesis 3 of shame you want to isolate. It's not just I did something bad, it's I am bad. I want to hide. And we can so it's isolation from God, isolation from everybody. And, whenever I want to feel isolated, I want to get away, I want to not be seen, I say, well, wait a minute, maybe I'm ashamed of something. Now, what could that be? Okay, so it is Another thing there is, if you want to read on shame and guilt, I read on it for several years. There's a lot of books and theological books, and Kurt Thompson gave some input on this. Richard Winter, who was wonderful, advisory council member, Phil, a lot of people have had input on this, and we had a lot of trouble with certain terms of how to you express certain things in ways that would be easily understood. But there are cultures where shame is more thematic, but we all have shame. And so if you are living in America or you're brought up as an American, do not think that you do not have shame. So in a way, that distinction of shame guilt cultures can be helpful, but it has its dark side as well, the unhelpful side, that we all experience shame. And so, yeah.
That's helpful, Harriet. And I do remember those conversations we had a lot about them. If a person has no shame, that's a problem, in the sense of the same way as if you had no sensations in your hand and you put your hand on a stove and did not know to pull it back, you would be burned. At the same time, shame becomes a kind of toxicity that tells us we can never be in the presence of others or God. And so the lesson really is helping people understand the cultural side of things, how the differentiation between shame and guilt, even true and false shame, true and false guilt, there are things on that, and giving us opportunities to see that shame is a universal experience. And what does God have to say about it? And how does he, like in Genesis 3, go out and find those who feel cut off and separated?
Yeah, and I'd like to add one thing too, that I think it was Kurt Thompson maybe who helped me most with this, but whoever did. Shame is with reference to a certain community, a certain culture, a certain social group. So what is shamed in one group can be honored in another group. And as we have facilitators for many cultures, we kind of look at that and explore that and see, what kinds of behaviors in our culture are honored, which ones are shamed. But and then compare to the Bible, which we do. But every person in every culture falls short. And so one of the wonderful things to fight shame is to think, who am I letting define what is shameful? Because if we associate with God, with other Christians, with the word of God, we will know what is truly shameful and what is truly honorable. And that might be very different than what our family members think, our community members think. And so that is, to me, a really brilliant help to me. Like, who is defining what is shameful? Because sometimes we are shamed by others, or we feel shame for some decisions we have made, some positions we have taken. So I know the shame thing is a huge issue, and there are things that are downright shameful in any culture. And I'm not talking about those, but shame comes in so many levels, the degrees, where you're just totally overwhelmed with it too. You just have this niggling embarrassment feeling. And I think we can become better, more skilled at addressing it at any level, because it's the same kind of response that we use, whether it's small or big.
Right, that's so good. And this is just one topic of the 9 topics. So just a short answer from you, Harriet. There's 9 lessons. In the original book, we had certain ones that were core that you had to do and other ones that are supplemental. How do we respond? Do we do all 9, or are we able to pick and choose?
Well, I think you can pick and choose. I would say it really assumes that you've worked through healing the wounds of trauma first, and some lessons more so than others. The first lesson and the forgiveness lesson, I think, really, really rely on having done that. You need to know about lament, for example, in the way that we talk about it, and forgiveness. You need to work through that forgiveness in your heart. The other lessons, I think you maybe are building on healing the wounds of trauma, but not absolutely essential that you have done the whole trauma healing thing before. But there are two lessons that really do have to be done in sequence. And that is the lesson, I think it's 6 and 7, difficult conversations provides the foundation of pursuing reconciliation. So those you can't, and it says so in the introduction, you know, this lesson 7 is building on lesson 6. So those two you really need to do as a pair. Or well, you can't do 7 without 6. You could potentially do 6 without 7, but anyway, do whatever you need to do.
Very good. Rebekah, before we say goodbye to Harriet and introduce some testimonials, do you have a final question?
Actually, no, I think she answered the big question that we're getting in mass in the chat, which is, oh, Harriet has something to say anyway, but the big question we're getting, Harriet, is how do you use this? And I think you just explained, you use it after healing the wounds of trauma, and you can use it in a variety of ways, all of the online lessons or just a few, and 6 and 7 in order if you're going to do them. But Harriet, what did you want to say to us?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me what my favorite part was.
What's your favorite part? That's a perfect question.
I would have responded had you asked me.
Harriet, what is your favorite part?
My favorite part, I think I was thinking about this. I think it's at the end of lesson 1, the picture of the weaned child. We go through the lament, we go through Job, we look at, it goes through it all. And then we end up with David, who ends up at the same place as Job, you know, of being the weaned child. I've calmed and quieted my soul. I am like a weaned child. I am content. And that picture of the weaned child, I mean, I've been through things where I've been fighting, screaming, and hollering. And you get to the point eventually, if you scream and holler long enough, where you are weaned. And it's wonderful for me in 2 ways. One, connecting with David, like this is a basic human experience. Like this was like centuries ago, this guy wrote this, and now I'm feeling the same experience as did Job. Secondly, I'd like to mention Frank Cole, a British facilitator who is looking at the Psalms as being written during different villages in the way we talk about grieving process. This is definitely a village 3 Psalm. I love that connection as well. Thank you.
Harriet, thank you so much. Thank you so much for writing this material. We're so thrilled to have it, and we're so grateful you could join us this morning. Thank you. Now we're going to hear from some facilitators like you around the world who got early pilot versions and have started using Strength from Weakness. Our first video is from Misty Bodkins, who's in the United States.
Hi, my name is Misty Bodkins, and I'm a master facilitator in the Adult and Teen Healing the Wounds of Trauma program. I had the opportunity to be involved in piloting the Strength from Weakness material, which I was grateful for the experience, as one of the questions I had routinely been asked when sharing the trauma healing experience arc is, where are the lessons focusing on rebuilding and resilience side of the arc? The truth is that resilience and rebuilding are woven throughout the core lessons of the Healing the Wounds of Trauma curriculum. But the Strength from Weakness material contains lessons that help people to be able to continue to grow through their suffering. For example, one of the lessons that had an impact on me was the lesson titled Wrestling with God and looking deeper into the life of Job. By wrestling with God, crying out to him, and asking him hard questions, these are the things that God welcomes from me, affirming the truth that he is there, he is listening to me, and he is caring for me. By wrestling with God, I can dislodge the wrong beliefs that I hold on to strongly during times of suffering. And suffering can actually then bring me to a new understanding of God, that he is in control. And as a result of wrestling with him, I can actually grow through my suffering. There are other lessons that help people to gain skills to connect with others in healthier ways, so that issues are addressed and a strong, vibrant community can be reestablished and rebuilt, such as lessons on having difficult conversations and pursuing reconciliation. These lessons take concepts we learned and how we can forgive others and the core material of healing the wounds of trauma, and goes deeper with very practical steps that one can take. Some tips that I would have is that I would spread these lessons out over the course of 3 to 4 weeks, perhaps doing 2 lessons a week for a month after you have finished up the core lessons of your healing group. Like your healing group, you may want to also plan for more time for each lesson than what is indicated. What I have found is that our group wants to have a lot more time to be able to discuss some of these new concepts, especially as they look at perhaps peeling back another layer of trauma in their life. And make sure that you practice the skits and other activities as well first before you facilitate them during the lesson. I hope that you will take these strength from weakness material and that you will add this to what you're already doing in your healing groups, and that the Lord will continue to get glory and honor to his name. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Misty, for sharing that testimony. And the first thing, Rebekah, that came to my mind as I was listening to that is that first lesson of wrestling with God. You know, we learn in the Healing Wounds of Trauma, how the church can help material, that it's okay to bring our angry tears, our complaints to God, and it gives us permission. But this goes further to even show that it's an act of worship to wrestle with God, like Jacob wrestled with God, to wrestle and to really stay in that relationship. Seems often that somehow we feel like there's something not permissible about that, something wrong in wrestling with God. In fact, though, it can be a great act of faith, and that was really meaningful. That's something that we need these extra lessons for, to really dig into that.
Yeah. And like she said, it's a continuation of the conversations that start in the Healing the Wounds of Trauma group, where you never have enough time to finish the conversations, and because they're so robust and they're so deep and meaningful, or you have the conversation and then it gets revealed over time as you live life and you start to practice the things that you're learning. I have to say, one of the things I really loved about Misty's video is just how practical and what a great master facilitator she is. Did you hear her mentoring us all in that moment? Don't forget to prepare, read the instructions ahead of time, and make sure you give enough time in your schedule for people to really fully experience the program. Because if we don't leave enough space for conversation, for participation, then the real transformation can't happen. So thank you so much, Misty, for that. It was a good reminder for all of us.
That was great. So we have another testimony that you can introduce.
We do. Our next video is from Nigeria. Ogumbu is going to share with us about how he's been using it there.
From Beacon of Hope Initiative, Nigeria, a master facilitator in the Adult Classic Trauma Healing Program. I am excited about the Strength from Weakness material. It is helping facilitators grow through their experiences. The participants we have had sessions with have expressed their appreciation for the material. They shared that it has been very helpful with practical steps. Some of the things we see work well are having trained facilitators who have gone through the classic program as participants enables easy connection to the lessons. Participants easily understand the context. Also, the lessons are viewed generally as timely and applicable. Again, the use of group discussions and other activities during sessions gives participants the opportunity to make contributions, which is quite helpful for the healing process. Some of the activities we found very exciting during the sessions at Beacon of Hope include the ATM skit in Wrestling with God lesson. In carrying out this activity, we have a participant act as an ATM with another as a customer withdrawing cash. Doing it this way adds creativity and, most importantly, provides participants the opportunity to visualize their relationship with God and how we sometimes see him like an ATM that has to give us whatever we request and whenever. But we learn he answers in his time and how he wants to. We see participants come to the conclusion that we need to have an ongoing relationship with God and not one of going to him only when we have a need. Another exciting activity is in the principles of sowing and reaping section, where a short story of the two wolves fighting in the heart is read, after which participants in small groups consider ways we feed good and evil in our lives. This exercise helps to come up with practical ways to nourish the good that needs to succeed in our lives, which is God's plan for us. In conclusion, I'd like to share a story from Gloria, one of our facilitators. Growing up as an orphan with polygamous foster parents, domestic abuse, little or nothing to eat was a struggle to survive. These experiences left bitterness in my life, even as an adult. Owing to the healing group I participated in and my training as a trauma healing facilitator, I found relief. Participating in Strength from Weakness has helped me see that some of the experiences I faced were like a cycle which was handed from my grandparents down to me. The family tree activity enabled me to note some of the painful experiences, but most significantly also helped me to identify and appreciate the blessings around me. This realization has lifted the heaviness from my heart and is liberating, so I can gladly say I am healed and thankful. God bless you.
Wow, Ovi, thank you so much for sharing that. There's so much in there that I would love to pull out and just things that came to me. But first off, wow, that, you know, he's reminding us about the secret sauce that Harriet talked about, which is the discussion. So many times we have heard good lectures and information, but if we don't engage it, it doesn't have often the same healing process and capacity. So I was so glad that he pulled out several of those activities, and some of them are convicting, like the ATM one, where we realize sometimes we come to God like an ATM and we look to make a withdrawal when we need something, and then we go away and forget about it until we need more money, need more help. So that's a bit convicting, but it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, there were so many great things in this testimony, and I really loved him pointing out that people felt the lessons were applicable. I think one of the questions is, okay, well, what's the difference between healing the wounds of trauma and this? What's interesting is that the facilitators have used it to say, yeah, this is the next step. This is a continuation. And his comment about after that group discussion, it becomes applicable in their lives. It's something that they can go and practice. That really speaks to the resilience part of the arc, right? Like this is how we approach the future.
That's so true. And I just want to highlight too, that testimony about that Gloria gave him. Gloria was not just a participant, Gloria was also a facilitator and found a new layer of healing herself in the process. And that's just delightful to see, because we all have had that experience where we might even be leading something and realizing God needs to do a work of healing in our own hearts. Yeah, and that's why it is so powerful to experience the material before we lead it, because we're all in the same boat. We all need Jesus, and we all need transformation, and we all need healing. So thank you so much, Ovi, for this beautiful video. It's really great to hear what's happening in Nigeria. Our next video is from Romania, Emilia Urgundopol. I'm sorry, Emilia. We're so glad she's the executive director of the Romanian Bible Society, and she's going to share about how they're using it there.
Hello, my name is Emilia Urgundopol. I am the General Secretary of the Interconfessional Bible Society in Romania, and I am Master Facilitator in the Adult Trauma Healing Program. I want to tell you a few words and tips about the Strength from Weakness program. It has 9 lessons. Personally, I like the most 4 of them: good and evil, generational trauma and blessings, shame and guilt, and using our feelings for good. As you know, the skits and the group and pair discussions are very powerful in the trauma healing program. And I want to share with you about a very innovative idea in the biblical skit of Cain and Abel in the good and evil lesson. The participants are asked to create 2 different endings of the biblical story. The first one, what if Cain didn't let himself ruled by sin? And the second one, what happened if Cain said the truth to God? These 2 endings of the skit shows clearly that God wants to offer us always a second chance. This innovative idea was very inspirational. Therefore, we made an adaptation in the shame and guilt lesson, and we asked the participants to think about what Adam and Eve should have done to reconcile with God after they fell. Also, in the using our feelings for good, we learn to listen to our feelings and to become friends with our feelings rather than enemies. So these are only a bit of salt and pepper of the trauma healing Strength from Weakness program. This could be used in addition to the main program, but also interconnected with it. We did this interconnected in the spring with a group of students from an Orthodox Theological University. And I have to tell you that it went very well. I loved a lot this program from the very, very beginning. And anytime I have occasion, I like to interconnect it with the main program or use some of the lessons separately. Therefore, I invite you to discover more about Strength from Weakness and work with it. Thank you.
Phil, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, touched it too quickly. Thank you, Emilia, for the hard work you've been doing, not only in Romania, but I know you have been leading the same kinds of trainings throughout Eastern Europe and taking such a lead in your position and bringing it to all sorts of communities and populations. So thank you so much for that. And I really loved the salt and pepper that you gave us for this, especially a little bit getting us to think about, well, what would have happened if Cain would have responded differently? And are there places in my life where I might be hearing the voice of the Lord and having an opportunity to do something different that I've sort of felt stuck in?
Yeah, and this is really about giving opportunities for people to relate to God, to connect with God, and using those participatory questions is the way to do that. I love her passion for the program and for this particular material. I thought it was interesting all the different ways she's used it. That's surprising to me. She's used it at facilitator communities of practice. She's used it at an advanced equipping. She's done them as supplemental lessons. She used them with the group of Orthodox seminary students after groups. She wanted to interconnect it with the different ways that they're doing trauma healing. I think that's really interesting how versatile it can be.
Yes, and I know there's been a lot of questions here about how can I get experience of it? Do I need a special training for it? One of the ways that Emilia has solved that is by bringing it into an advanced equipping or a community of practice so that facilitators can experience it first, because we know that when we experience a lesson first, we're far better prepared to then go and lead those lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the joy of the community of practice, and even making connections with people during the webinar that you can go and experience it together. Thanks to Zoom, that really is a reality for us right now, that it is possible to connect and learn together, even if we're on opposite sides of the world. It's a real blessing. Our next video is from Nigeria as well. And we're going to hear from Kanki Shwe about how she has experienced strength from weakness and is using it.
Everyone, my name is Kanki Shwe. I'm a master facilitator in adults program, a training facilitator in the children's program, and a healing group facilitator in story base. In my experience using strength from weakness, what has worked well for me is how World Renew deliberately put this manual in the hands of quite a number of facilitators in Nigeria. This was done through organizing workshops that drew facilitators from different organizations and communities. In each of these workshops, we spent 3 days covering the 9 lessons in the manual. This is so that facilitators can have personal experience and interact with the material before using it in our healing groups. In addition, in 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we had a virtual commentary practice, and strength from weakness was our main discussion. And since then, facilitators and organizations have been using the manual in healing groups after completing the core lessons in healing the wounds of trauma. Participants have also shared how blessed they were with the deep truth of the Word of God coming from that lesson. Their engagement with the material was highly encouraging to me. In one of the sessions, Ladi Peter, a participant, testified how she came to the program broken and shattered, but she's living as a rebuilt person because her strength is revived, her hope and trust in God was also restored. In this manual, I have 2 favorite lessons. The first one is lesson 3, generational trauma and blessings. Just as trauma can be passed on from generation to generation, I was encouraged to also learn that blessings can also be passed on from generation to generation. And the activity identifying generational trauma and blessings in one's family tree really stood out for me. The second lesson is lesson 8, fulfilling your purpose in life. When I did the exercise of connecting my skills, my life experiences, and my education, I was so encouraged to see how God has used my experience in life, my skills, and my education for a time like this in my generation. I've also used lesson 9, advocating for justice, in a mini session with a group of church leaders in my community. Strength from weakness is not just immaterial, but is a resource that equips trauma survivors to stand strong in life, in the storms of life. Thank you all for your time, and God bless you for listening. Amen.
Well, thank you, Kanki, and thank you for another great testimony that reminds us that these lessons are not just good for others, but they're good for us, and that they are things that we need in our lives. What I really liked is, again, that they decided in their region that they would hold a workshop or a special training for that. Now, that's not required, but it is a great way to come together and experience them. The main point is what she's trying to point out is we need to be able to experience them, and to do that in a group so that we can learn how to use them, apply them first to our lives, and then out there. Rebekah, what what did you hear? And you,
Yeah, and another comment just on those workshops that they organized. Two things I noticed. The first is that it was people from different organizations coming together. And these are folks who are already trauma healing facilitators. That's the community of practice. And one of my favorite things about trauma healing is the way that practitioners can come together and share ideas. Well, how did you use this? This is, like that connection is so valuable and rich. So I loved that part of it. But also it was super practical. It's a way to literally distribute the material. If people don't have access to the Trauma Healing Institute website where you can get the material directly, either download the PDF or purchase the books from Bibles.com, you have to find ways to distribute it. And workshops, experiential workshops, do that in a really helpful way. So I thought it was just practical to prepare people to lead, but also just a good way to distribute the materials effectively. But I really loved how she talked about the generational trauma healing and what that meant to her. Phil, what did you think about that portion?
yeah, I really love that lesson where it helps people understand the traumas that may have come down through generations in their community or in their families. And people can be helped by actually recognizing some of the things that have been brought into their lives, but it is also helpful not just to think about the bad things that we've experienced, but to recognize that there are also blessings. Maybe there's that one teacher or that one parent or that one person in your church who looked out for you, who saw that you had a capacity and encouraged you to grow. And people can start to see that blessing. And that's something that they can pass on to the next generation, which gives us hope. So it's a beautiful lesson. And it's a beautiful opportunity to remember that though we suffer and have many tears, there are also things that God has placed in our lives. And they don't cancel out the suffering, but they certainly are good things to remember and recount. Just one more thing. I think that's what the Bible, especially the Old Testament, is all about for us, is looking back to see where God was in our difficult times and knowing that he did not abandon us.
Yeah, and that is a truth to close on. So thank you for that reminder, Phil, that really is the purpose, is remembering God's faithfulness to us for our generation and those to come. I want to thank you, Phil, for joining us again for this conversation. And thank you so much again to all of our video presenters for sharing what you're doing. We look forward to hearing from the rest of the community of practice about how they're using strength from weakness in the days ahead. And really special thanks to Dr. Harriet Hill for joining us and sharing about the work that she has done. So grateful for the material itself and for your heart for trauma healing and those offering healing around the world to suffering and hurting people. I'm going to take us through something relatively quick and practical. The big question that we're seeing in the chat is, where do I find strength from weakness material, and how do I access it? So I'm going to show you just real quickly how to do that on our website. So you're going to go to the Trauma Healing Institute website. Hopefully, let's see here. There we go. You're going to go to the Trauma Healing Institute website and you're going to log in the up in the upper corner, and you're going to use your login credentials. If you don't have them already, you can create an account with the email that you use to register for your initial equipping session. Ignore that. Once you get inside, you'll see your picture and some information about you. And then up in the upper left-hand corner, you'll notice something that says materials. You're going to click on that where it says materials. And then you're going to scroll down and you're going to click on adult trauma healing. In the adult trauma healing section, at the very bottom is where you're going to find strength from weakness. Everything you need, if you are a healing group facilitator or above, you will find in the strength from weakness folder everything you need to lead your group, and to report on your group. So here you'll see there is a video from Dr. Phil that just provides an introduction on what it is, how to use it. You'll also see that there is the book, which you can download as a PDF, or you can purchase from Bibles.com. And then there's an FAQ document that it will answer all those questions that you have about who can use it, where can it be used, how do you report on it, etc. And of course, don't forget to submit your healing group report form. You can do that via the online form or by filling out the PDF and sending it into support@traumahealinginstitute.org. Now remember, this is the English version of Strength from Weakness. Translations are in process right now in several languages, including Spanish, French, and Arabic. And when those are ready, we will also publish those on the website so that you can access them. And I just want to remind everyone there's some action items to follow up after our webinar as usual. All this information is available to you on the website and will be sent out to you after the webinar. There's also a post-webinar survey included. Don't forget, find a co-facilitator and review Strength from Weakness together, and then you're good to go to lead it. That's what you need to do. For healing group facilitators and above, when you lead a Strength from Weakness group, you can report on it. And for those of you who are apprentice facilitators and are really itching to get your hands on Strength from Weakness and use it, we really encourage you to come to an advanced equipping after you lead your 2 practice groups using Healing the Wounds of Trauma. You can find upcoming advanced equipping sessions by reaching out to your mentor or by looking on the events page of the Trauma Healing Institute website. And as always, you can find more information on the Trauma Healing Institute website or follow us on social media for upcoming information. Okay, now we are going to experience a bit of Strength from Weakness. And remember at the beginning when I suggested that you have that pen and paper handy, this is the time for that. I'm going to lead the closing exercise or walk us through the closing exercise in the lesson about how to use our feelings for good. This is lesson 5, and it's on page 31 if you have the book. But here's what I'd like us to do. This is the closing activity about how we can use our feelings to draw closer to God. Our feelings can help us experience God more fully. And for centuries, Christians around the world have used this exercise to let their feelings guide them to knowing God better. So I'm going to invite you individually, quietly, on your own, to reflect for a few minutes on 2 questions. The first question is, think back over the last 24 hours and list the things you did. Excuse me, those are the instructions. Think back over the last 24 hours and list the things you did. Now, I want you to consider, when did you feel closer to God? What were you doing? When did you feel further from God? What were you doing? Write these things down. You can see these questions in the chat. They'll put the instructions in the chat, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes to think back over the last 24 hours and list the things you did, considering when you felt closer to God and what you were doing then, and when you felt further from God and what were you doing at that time. So we're going to be quiet for 2 minutes. I hope you had time to think about when you felt closer to God and what you were doing at the time, and when you felt further from God over the last 24 hours and what you were doing at the time. In the chat, I'd love for you to share something that made you feel closer to God or something that made you feel further from God. Invite you to share with each other in the chat one thing that you noted. I love the things that are being shared. Singing a worship song, chatting and having coffee with good friends, being with family members, connecting with those we love, holding a child, having personal quiet time, playing my guitar, going for a walk, Bible study, serving others, reading the Word of God, having encouraging conversation with friends and coworkers, doing trauma healing work, leading a convening session and praying to God and feeling close to Him before that, encouraging others. These are wonderful reminders of the kinds of things that we can do to feel close to God. These are the kinds of activities that we can do every day, just like all those who came before us in the Christian faith. This is such a beautiful reminder, and we can try to do more of these things every day to feel closer and closer to God. I'm going to read Philippians 4:8-9 as a sort of benediction, but also the conclusion to lesson 5. And it's a beautiful reminder to us today. So Philippians 4, verses 8 and 9. In conclusion, my friends, fill your minds with those things that are good and deserve praise, things that are true, noble, right, pure, lovely, and honorable. Put into practice what you learned and received from me, both from my words and from my actions. And the God who gives us peace will be with you. We are so glad that you joined us today. And we do pray that you would experience the peace of God as you go out back into your lives, and especially in your trauma healing ministries. We pray that you would really experience that peace and God's blessing. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye.